Welcome back to BIZ Check. We are live from Broadcasting House. Now time to get into our second conversation. And of course, we want to look at the state of built environment. And of course, we're joined by two critical players in this industry. And of course, this is the Engineers Board of Kenya Registrar and CEO Engineer Margaret Ogai. Thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Very good. And of course, Engineer Patrick Wambulwa, he's the chair of Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya, which is also another critical player in the built environment. Thank you very much, Engineer, for your time. I first of all want to hear from you. How would you describe the state of built environment in Kenya as we stand?
Thank you. The state, I would say, there's an amount of chaos in the built environment. Yes, yes, which comes from poor planning, which is outside engineering. That's the physical planning. So we need to create a good physical planning, and what the planners call structured integrated plans for our areas to streamline the built environment.
The key word here is that there is chaos.
Yes.
Do you agree with Engineer Wambulwa that
I think
this industry is in chaos?
I think I'd like to just approach it differently, and I think it's good he's brought out the issue of chaos. But in reality, I think we have a very strong sector, both in construction, and which is and it is a good sector, and it is contributing to the ordinary lives of Kenyans. The way we travel from our homes to our offices, the food production, talk about the water supply that you have, the electricity we have, telecommunications. So we have a robust sector, which is contributing to the economic growth and socio-economic growth of our country. And I think it is very good. We have competent engineers, we have competent contractors who are doing great work out there. We have competent planners and good people generally. But I think what he was raising is that, of course, there's always room for improvement, and there are definitely gaps when we look at the whole practice. And these are the areas we'd want to highlight, both to government and to the Mwananchi, so that we are able to have an even better built environment in Kenya.
Well, if you're just joining us, of course, we are live from Broadcasting House, and our conversation is around the state of engineering here, engineering in Kenya. And of course, if I can bring you up to speed, in the last 2 years, more than 50 buildings, have collapsed, and this has cost around 20 lives. That's according to statistics by the National Construction Authority. And the country has about how many? 15,000 registered graduate engineers. Okay, and of those registered graduate engineers, the certified number of professional, or what we call professional engineers, is about less than 3,000, right? Yes, 3,000. 3,000. And so the question has always been, how do we improve or increase the number of engineers, certified engineers in this country, bearing in mind that every year thousands of graduate engineers, are entering the job market. And that's why I want to hear from you, Engineer Margaret Ogai. So what we need to accelerate, the registration or the certification of graduate engineers in Kenya?
Well, thank you very much. I think that's a topic that's very dear to the board. We have a strategic intent to register 10,000 professional engineers in the next 5 years. And we have made
10,000?
Yes, to move from 3,000 to 10,000. That will achieve...
So that's about 7,000
7,000 more. We have a deficit of 7,000. And this will achieve the UNESCO ratio, which talks based on your population, you should be 1 to 5,000. 1 engineer to every 5,000. So we think we are on the right track. And we've seen a lot of improvement. This year we've registered 300, and some of the plans we've put include having a graduate engineer internship program, which is partly funded by government. We are able to absorb 300 engineers as Engineers Board of Kenya in the last 2 years. Our agencies are also cooperating and collaborating with us. We have a number of engineers undergoing training, and we are seeing the transition numbers coming a lot. Especially, I would talk about Kenya National Highways Authority. They have a very robust program, and we have seen the numbers are going up. And we are also talking to private sector. I think we have initially been forgetting the private sector, but they employ engineers in the manufacturing space, and therefore we've talked to them, and we are coming up with MOUs, and we are going to see our numbers going up. Of course, we are appealing for a more structured, even funding around this issue. So we are looking at maybe if we can get, I think at Tanzania, we did a recent benchmarking, and we found what they do, a percentage of the project costs are used to do the training of engineers. So we are looking at that so that we can move the numbers up. You can see we are graduating 2,000 every year. We have a deficit of 7,000. This 300 I've talked about is just a drop in the sea.
It's a drop in the sea.
So I think that is something we are looking at, and we are trying to coordinate with government so that we can have allocate budgets through projects.
Yep.
It might be easier.
You're talking about, you have certified about 300 this year?
This year alone is 300.
300?
Yes.
And, your target is 7,000 more certified engineers in the next 5 years.
Yes, please.
So which translates to about 1,200 and something, engineers every year, right?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So do you see yourself, hitting that target, by all means?
Yes, I think I'm confident we will. What we are doing is we have said every year we are calling ourselves double. Next year, we expect to do 600 to 700. And we are doing it by also collaborating with the industry. And I think I'm very glad I'm here with my colleague from the Association of Consulting Engineers, who also are a great trainer of engineers. Because when they get the job, they employ graduate engineers, and under mentorship of professional engineers, they then come to us for registration. So through that partnership and collaboration, I do believe that we are going to increase our numbers. We've also put many other structures in place. We have increased our professional interview panels. And I think one critical aspect always is about the resources. We are looking at increasing our resources. We have, but ultimately, I think we must partner, because the engineers to train the other engineers are out in the market already. It's a question of linking up these two people.
I want to hear from Engineer Wambulwa. As Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya, when you look at the strategies that the Engineers Board of Kenya and other sector players have put in place to recruit more professional engineers into the market, are you convinced that in the next 5 years, we are going to have 7,000 more certified engineers added into the market?
Yes, those numbers can be achieved, and the policies and the structures they have are okay, but it is not the Engineers Board that employs, they certify.
So their work is to certify.
Yes, so it is the economy that has to grow. And my experience, whenever you have an economy scoring more than 5%, then there is always growth in the construction industry, and these people can be employed.
They can be employed.
They can be employed. Yes.
When you look at the fact that, every year about 2,000 graduate engineers, are being are graduating from our universities, and you have a target of, employing about or certifying about 7,000 more graduate engineers. It means that in the next 5 years, we shall have about 10,000 more, if the numbers are not going to increase, right? We are going to have more than 10,000 graduate engineers. So how do you ensure that you don't have such a huge backlog going forward?
The growth of the economy absorbs these people in employment and gives them good experience, because immediately you walk out of university and you walk into a job that gives you proper professional training, then you quickly transition into a professional engineer, because you have gone through a proper training phase for you. That's how I look at it.
Can I also add? I think, thank you, and I agree. I think also we are looking as a country, we want to also start exporting professional engineering services. In fact, we're in a very big discussion today on liberalizing engineering services in the continent of Africa. So we are looking at also serving. Our engineers today have been serving. I think if you look at Southern Africa, in the 80s and early 90s, a good number of professional engineers were working in Lesotho, Southern Africa.
Yeah.
Botswana. That has gradually, I think that gradually they have built their own capacity. But now that we also have the opportunity of DRC having joined the EAC, I believe we should be looking at exporting not just goods, but engineering services. So I personally say we're not looking at only our Kenyan market. We are looking at ourselves going out there because we'll have the competitiveness. So our engineers are not only working here. So we're also having engineers who are training outside of our country. We have mutual recognition agreements so that your training gets recognized here and you can become registered here.
But
so I think those are some of the other strategies.
But even as we planned, to start, the export of professional engineers, to our neighboring countries, do we have enough professional engineers, to serve the Kenyan market?
And that's why I said it's two-throned. You talked about the backlog. So I said to me, the backlog is also
graduate engineers.
Is the graduate engineers, and I'm saying they're also we can also export into the market out there as we expand our markets.
But what should be understood, export of professional services is not the same as export of goods. Because when you export a good, it has exceeded the Kenyan market. But when I export my services, I will work in Rwanda on Monday, and on Tuesday I will be back in Nairobi, and on Thursday, and on Friday I will be in Uganda. So I am still available, but that enriches even our local competitiveness.
Engineer Wambulwa, as the chair of ASIC. Do we have enough engineers in this country to serve the Kenyan market?
Yes. Let me answer that one, please.
You want to answer on his behalf? I'm also coming to you because I also want to. But even let's first of all, even before we go to Engineer Ogai, I want to hear from you as ASIC.
Yes, there is something that should be differentiated: the numbers of engineers and the capacity of firms.
Okay, elaborate.
Now, engineers do not serve in consulting engineers only. They are in all industries. They are in construction industry, consulting industry. They are in teaching, research, manufacturing. So the challenge is not the numbers of individuals, but the challenge is on the capacity of the firms that are providing engineering services.
So, and when you look at our capacity,
that capacity is what makes us look weak. But in terms of numbers and heads of people,
we have enough.
We have enough.
So you wanted to
I wanted to say, because I think one of the things we've not been doing before is really appreciating that we have on our roll as an engineers board of Kenya close to 18,000 graduate engineers already on our roll. So we have trained as a country, we have a good stock of well-trained engineers, or let me say educated, let me not use the word trained, because there's now the professional training that comes 3 years after. So that is already in our market serving us. I think the issue we're talking about now is translating that to become a professional engineer. And like he says, you're not only training for consulting is still fairly weak, we are training them for all aspects of the economy, including leadership. I mean, you would want to have, we already have 2 PSs who are engineers. We have very many heads of organizations who are engineers. So we also now, you start translating and you have leadership coming through that. So I'm saying there's never enough of well-educated people, specialized training, and therefore we should embrace that we have this group of highly specialized trained people, and all it is to actually now focus them towards the market that we want. And I know, and the most important is that they then contribute to the production and the productivity within the economy of our country.
Engineer, Wambulwa, talked about, the numbers, absolute numbers, in terms of, heads, the number of qualified or certified engineers in this country vis-a-vis the capacity to service the Kenyan market. And you're saying that is where we have a mismatch, right?
Yes.
How do we deal with that, or what kind of a mismatch is there?
To deal with the capacity of companies requires the intervention from national government in terms of enforcing or promoting what they call local content, where Kenyan companies are given opportunity to take on jobs in this country. As part of liberalization, and no country, we cannot say we should not liberalize, but no country develops without liberalization. But if you liberalize to the disadvantage of your national people, then it weakens.
Liberalization must be structured. To meet or to serve the interests of that country.
Yes, yes. So local companies are building capacity because you have earmarked certain percentage of the budget for those jobs to be done by Kenyan people. Then you are developing the capacity of those consulting firms, construction companies, even industries, to be competitive not only in Kenya, but even outside Kenya. There is an international competition I face in Kenya without leaving Kenya, because you have a foreign company coming to bid the same service to provide in Kenya. So I need to develop my capacity. I am serving in Kenya, but to international standards. And this can only happen if there is a structured way that the budget allows that up to a certain amount of money, this level of contract is done by Kenyans. And that way, you are building the capacity of the Kenyan to serve here and abroad.
Engineer Ogai,
if you open it for the foreigner and everything is gone, then the Kenyan company will not develop capacity to serve here or anywhere else in the world. So we'll be colonized at home.
You're bringing a very interesting, conversation here around. And I know there has been uproar, in the past because of the influx of foreign engineers, who are taking up jobs in the country that can be actually be done by locally trained engineers. But as the industry regulator, what are you doing to ensure that the capacity of engineers in Kenya is enhanced?
Thank you for that. I think we are doing a lot. We are doing a lot, and let me start. As I said, we are trying to come up with structured training for our graduate engineers. Our problem has been to expand that space, because even if I send to Engineer Wambulwa and with his consulting firm, maybe 15 graduate engineers, depending on the workload, he will not be able to absorb them. So on the one side, we are trying to look at that. Projects, can we have an allocation? We are looking at, as he says, we are working and partnering with other government agencies. If it is immigration, we want to partner with them so that before there is we actually, what we do right now as we regulate, we have registration of temporary engineers. These are the foreign engineers, because there are certain areas we do not have the capacity or the competencies. It is a fact. We live in a global village, so there are some things we are going to absorb. But we have when we get an application, we check that we actually don't have that competency, and then we also ask them that you must then mentor 2 or 3 engineers, and they have to show us the plan. In the next 3 years, while you're doing this project, how you're going to also mentor the engineers, local engineers, so that in the long term they take over that function. Yes, and I think the biggest thing that we are doing, apart from that, we also are developing. We have a capacity development function as Engineers Board of Kenya, because unless the capacity of our engineers is such that they are cutting edge in their knowledge, in the technologies that we are using, obviously they will not also slip away when it comes to the competition. And I think the big one, the big elephant in the room, must be to do with enforcement. And I will say this, partly when he feels that his space is shrinking, it is to do with, we have a lot of laws, even regarding thresholds. But are we actually implementing that? We have buildings, you talked about buildings collapsing. We are trying to look who actually designed, developed, supervised this work. And quite often, we have seen that we are not actually using the people who are competently trained in a certain area to do certain work. And these are the things now the regulator comes in, so that we ensure if it is a building, when it gets approval from the county government, it can only be supervised by a professional engineer. That is one space that has been a bit not going very well for us. We are trying to improve on that.
I'll be coming back to you because you know, I was going through the report that you know the draft report that was released by EBK, you know, on the number of buildings, you know, that have collapsed in the B zones. And one of the issues was that we do not have proper capacity at the county levels. And when you have about 47 counties in a country and only a few of them, you know, they have hired qualified engineers, then you have a challenge there. But first of all, before I come to that, I want to hear from Engineer Wambulwa. I have heard from the Institution of Engineers of Kenya saying that they would want about, is it 0.05% of the local infrastructure budget, you know, set aside for training of engineers. What is so hard about implementing such a policy?
I think the registrar would be more competent, but I don't think it is written in any policy document and in any law. But my thinking, going by the practice in developed countries, it is good to invest in training beyond university. And this money goes in research and training programs, where you are identifying the industry or sector needs and prioritizing them. Then you develop capacity building programs, and you also do research programs, and those come back to inform policy intervention to grow our economy. We look at it as we are talking engineering, but I think we are talking development. And if you may allow me to touch on the devolution, the structure, the devolution structure, there is no local government in Kenya. So in the absence of a structure for local government, you cannot provide local engineering service, or let's say municipal service, on the ground. And this is a gap. Our devolution structure has not touched the ground. So you get solid waste is not being collected. You are having stormwater. When there is a heavy rain, it carries people off. The issue of development planning and development control, they are not being touched on the ground because you have high offices which are not delivering the service on the ground. And that's where the engineer works. The engineer is there, but has not been given an appointment letter to be told, you are the municipal engineer. Provide the service.
I still want to come back, you know, to the issue that I was raising, you know, about setting 0.05% of our infrastructure budget, you know, to go towards, you know, the training of our engineers. I know it's not a policy yet.
Yes.
But I know it has been a proposal by the Institution of Engineers of Kenya.
Yes.
So what I wanted to find from you is this kind of a, if you were to implement this kind of a policy, is it so hard, number one, to implement, and number two, to enforce?
Now I come from private sector, so I cannot speak for national government. But from private sector, from private sector, I would like to say it is necessary.
It is necessary.
We should do it like yesterday.
I like your cautious approach. Because the regulator is here.
Because you know, if I would like to develop, I should look at somebody else who went ahead of me. So I should throw my eyes to the US, throw my eyes to UK and other developed countries. They, like both the developed countries, they have what they call the academies of engineering.
Yes.
And through the academies of engineering, government puts money into those academies to fund research.
And to enhance the capacity of local engineers.
And to do specialized sector studies, like we would like to produce a vaccine. So what goes into it, the full chain, or Kenya would like to be self-sufficient in production of a given product. What is the full chain that should go in? These researches are funded through the academies, and then the private sectors and the government pick components of those findings to run with them. So I would like to strongly say, yes, we need that allocation from the government to support training, not only engineers, but all professionals.
All disciplines.
All disciplines.
I'll be coming back to you because I would also want to find out, I mean, from you, when you look at the average age of an engineer, especially in the academia, I mean, we are talking about 50 what or 60 what now?
Could be. Where did you get your statistic? But I would say, well, it could be in the 50s. It could be maybe late 40s.
Not late 40s.
Late 40s.
You're talking about almost 60 years.
No. I think it is good. We look. I think an average means you take all the population and divide.
Yes.
And it was also good to be fair that we do have still a number of. I think we are looking at registration. You can do it after 3 years, but of course, majority are doing it after 10 years or so. 10, 15 years. That's how I was trying to average. And I think between 45 or so, we have a lot of engineers who are. Are
you trying to say that you can go to a local university and find a lecturer in engineering who is in their 40s?
Yes, and why not?
It's possible.
Yes, it is.
Do you agree?
These statistics I haven't done, so I may not know. But I know what one of the constraints that I have had when they put this requirement for a PhD, that you must have a PhD to be a lecturer.
To be a lecturer, yeah.
Then, you know, it takes. When it was masters, people would graduate with a bachelor's at 25. They do a master's in 2 years, and therefore, by 30, you would get lecturers at the university.
And then you go through another 3 years before you're certified.
But when they lifted that to PhD, then you can hardly get it until you are 35.
Until you're 35.
35, 38 is when Kenyans are getting a PhD.
So it's possible.
So you find now the bar has been lifted. So, but this is why I'm saying that there is need to provide funding, because you would say engineering education, and then you go in detail to understand
what you need.
If I must meet my Vision 2030, Africa Agenda 2063, SDGs, what must I do for engineering education? And that finding gives action plans.
It's because, you know, I have had, you know, prior conversations with the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, and actually they were raising concern that when you go to our institutions of higher learning, the average age of the lecturers there or the professors there, you know, is between 50 and 60 years, because universities are not employing, fresh and new lecturers, you know, in the field of engineering, because number one, it is costly, and number two, most people are going into private, into consulting, you know, privately, whereby, you know, there is a lot of money. So that's why I was raising that question.
You know, there are different ranks even within the whole faculty. And so I was looking at the whole, you know, of course we have senior lecturers and above, and professors and heads of departments, but I was also looking through the full value chain. We still have engineers who have a master's degree and are offering education in the universities. I think our biggest challenge actually is that group have also found it very hard to register to be professional engineers. And so we are coming up with specialized training programs for academia. We are at the tail end of coming up with an MOU, because we want also our lecturers to also have the practice, the perspective of the practice as they lecture. And I think that to me will be the only barrier, that we are also requiring that they be from senior lecturer and above. You need to be a professional engineer. And that is the other barrier that is coming forward. But really, I was looking at, you know, it's not just, you're probably looking at the heads of the entire value chain. The entire value chain. We do have engineers who are especially with the master's degree, they do train. And that's why I was like, it can't be that is 50, 60
But for professor, many people are touching professor when they are close to 50.
Close to 50.
Slightly above.
But I think it happens
but in terms of assistant lecturer, senior lecturer, I think they can do it in 40s.
Help me understand things. And have we updated, our training, in our institutions of higher learning? Because, the entire engineering fraternity is changing because of technology and new emerging needs. But have we upgraded our training capacities?
Again, I would like to say I'm not very close to training.
But you are very cautious.
Yes, because I'm more in practice.
I think what is he has his area and his perspective, which is what we want to bring forward rather than doing this.
I would like to talk about what I need in the market. What I need in the market for engineering, not to offer too many specialized bachelor's degrees. You provide broader, faster degrees, civil engineering, electrical, mechanical, but the universities should introduce more master's degrees, which are specialized, and for the government to support that.
Is that happening?
That is what is not happening.
That is not what
because
happening.
You are given a specialized bachelor's degree, which is too narrow. When you come in the market, you are not broad enough for the market, neither are you specialized. And I think this is why, this could be one of the factors that the Engineers Board had a quarrel with the universities. And when you actually work with these people in practice, you realize there is something missing.
So there is a mismatch between the training and the job market.
Yes. So the degree, there should be fewer, not fewer in numbers of people being trained, but fewer in number of the names of the degrees. And they should be, their content should be broader. But then people specialized.
So
with more masters, but the masters to be supported. Because I think the direct funding or supporting of university of masters postgraduate studies is not that strong.
Engineer Wambulwa is bringing another dimension into this conversation, because yes, it is true that every year we are graduating 2,000 fresh engineer graduates in this country.
Yes.
But what is their quality in terms of training?
Well, I think let me start by saying we deeply appreciate the work that is being done at the universities. It's always good to be fair and say we are all products of university.
Yes.
And we do have universities that are adhering to the highest international standards. At the same time, we started having a lot of dynamism regarding the engineering programs being launched. And we are now in good discussions with the State Department of University Education, the Commission of University Education, ourselves, to bring the perspective of what the market needs. And I can also say we have a very good group called the Council of Engineering Deans and Principals, which also came and saw there was a concern, because as you bring to the market, actually we are also having the same challenge. One engineer graduate might say they're not also sure whether they fall in under the degree under the stream, the discipline of civil engineering or agricultural engineering, and these are deep concerns. So I know through that council and with the discussions we are having, we are making a lot of headway, so that we also sort of have really what we want is a standardized approach to the quality and standard. So I'll not say the quality is bad, but it is varying. And some universities are really not meeting the standard. That is also good to state. We are having some universities, graduate engineers are teaching very courses which really we expect to be taught at a senior lecturer and above. But these are things that we are alive to. As a board, we are actually doing a review of all the engineering programs submitted to us, so that we can give advisory, even as we work out on the regulatory framework, so that we enhance the engineering education. And the reason we want to enhance it is the competitiveness. It goes back again. We are not an island. We are working with our neighbors. We come to Tanzania. They have a very strong regulatory framework for engineering education, where they work between the Engineers Registration Board and the equivalent of the University Education Regulator, so that programs are evaluated at 2 levels, both by the University Regulator, University Education Regulator, and the professional body. This is, I think, what is the standard practice worldwide, and we are looking at coming up with that collaborative framework. And I think we are making very good headway. So for us, I think it is engineering is. I think the other reason you'd want, apart from competitiveness out there, is about safety and security. Because you need to be safe that this equipment that we're using today here, the building that we're in, is safe. So it has to be somebody who has that competence. Just like we get a driving license and you expect the people giving you a driving license, you're giving to somebody who has the competence to drive on the road and not cause an accident. So for us, it's a pertinent issue. And I believe we have been listened to in very many forums. We are quite excited that as we come up with that regulatory framework soon, we are going to then have quality engineering education. The other big program we are coming up as a regulator is we want to also then be accredited internationally. We want to join the Washington Accord, which is under the International Engineering Alliance, so that our engineering degree if it is like from the University X, if you go to Australia, you just start working. Otherwise, normally you'll find most of us, I'm told, unfortunately, we have our graduate engineers from very good universities here today. When they go to Dubai, and I hear there is a lot of work there, they can only work as technicians.
Exactly.
You see, so those are the real challenges we are having. But I will not deny that we also do have challenges, that we have diluted some engineering education standards in some universities. But they are the minority. I would like to... They are the minority because the same engineers who are in our register are the same ones training.
But also remember, this principle of the rotten apple. When one apple is rotten, it's likely to destroy the entire
a good
apple
loss
in the basket.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, he talked about, some disagreements, but I would say, there was some conflicts between the Engineers Board of Kenya and the Commission for University Education. On who is actually supposed to regulate, the training of engineers in this country. And, the court had its way and, the matter was resolved. But I know you're also going to be cautious on this, as you have proved to be. But from your tremendous many years of experience, as a qualified engineer, how then should the two bodies work together to ensure that we do not dilute this critical industry that we call engineering?
I would like to say that, again, you look at the people who have gone ahead of us, the developed countries, they have both. And the two institutions talk to each other and collaborate. So I get a university degree from a university that has a charter by the Kenya government. It is offering courses that are approved by the, you call it Council of University
a regulator, engineering regulator.
But if I'm in a profession, the regulator for that profession also recognizes my degree. And maybe this, like the convention we are having on partnership, helps for different parties to agree and say, okay, then we will follow these steps so that the degree is agreed both by the Council of University Education as well as the regulators. And this again is not engineering because it affects medicine, it affects law, it affects quite a number of professions. So a person needs a degree which is accepted both ways.
I know. I know when that ruling, was delivered by the High Court. I mean, it was definitely a major setback, for the Engineers Board of Kenya.
But I supported the people because...
You supported who?
The students, because they went to a university that has a charter, and some of them...
Given by the government.
Yes, some of them, the chancellor was the president. So if I go to a university which has a charter given by the government, and the president, who is the chancellor, came and conferred a degree on me, you should not ask me any other question.
Exactly.
What else could I have done?
But I think the issue is, I would like to...
Even as you responded to...
That one is a bit controversial because we have agreed on standards,
Yes.
And standards come from many things. We go to KEBS because this water we are taking here We had, in fact, this one has no label. It is very worrying. But generally, you understand, the standards are approached from very many angles. There is, and the stakeholder, the first, what I agree is that it is very bad to hurt the student is at the heart of this.
Who has gone
and the student who is at the heart of it.
Yes.
And the citizen at the heart of it. Is that we want a competitive economy, isn't it?
Exactly.
So there are very many processes.
Yes,
it is not just about one aspect. It's multi.
Yes, but I have a solution.
In the sense that
you are asking whether that 0.what% should be given. So where there are these discrepancies, that is where the engineering academies come in to resolve. Because
those
you are putting money in the engineering academies, which have a series of research and training programs, and these engineers can still get their correction, what they missed at the university, and also pick up new developments through the programs of the engineering academies.
What I know for sure is that, you know, they are still,
you know... Just a little bit, I would like to say this. You see, I think I did finish my point.
Yes.
So there are very many players to make that product called your profession, journalism, or a doctor, or an engineer. So in engineering, we also have global standards, and we belong to the World Federation of Engineering Organizations.
Yes.
And so this is it in standard, and what is the general approach is that you have the professional engineering body also regulating the engineering education, so that we now have a linkage between the academic education and the industry requirements.
The market.
And the market.
Very well.
And that is standard. We have it in South Africa, which is the markets we want to compete with. You come across to Tanzania,
it is there.
They have the same. You go to Malaysia, we have the same. So there's not something that is even rocket science. It is something that is well accepted globally. And I don't think we have a conflict, because it is still one government approach. You know, you can be called this, X or Y, but ultimately there is a process you are doing to add value. That is what we want to look at. Where do I add value, and how do I collaborate with the person who is also adding his own value? I think that is all to me. And we must remember at the heart of it is that student who has spent time in a university. For me, it is very inefficient to finish in a program only to be told add A, B, C, D. We don't have as a country time to...
We must agree this. That this whole process, there are multiple players. And it is up to the multiple players to come to the table and agree that this is what we need to do. And I like it, you're putting it in good time, that this is how we're going to act together for the benefit of this country. People, we have to come to a close.
You mean so?
Because time is, you know, we've been here for almost 1 hour.
Thank you.
But two points I'd like to make quickly.
In 10 seconds.
Yes. To be paid on time. I am a contractor, consultant, a supplier. I manufacture goods and I supply. If government can pay
people on time,
I know that's a within the agreed time, it builds capacity of the Kenyan people to be competitive. The second one is what they call public investment management cycle. If I plan a project, I have allowed its budgeting properly, and what I can do in 1 year, I don't have to do in 5 years.
Very well.
And if those are absorbed, they also build the capacity of the Kenyan person to be competitive in his own home and abroad.
Engineers.
And it will grow our economy.
I'm sure you'll give me 10 seconds as well to wrap up.
My producer is telling me that...
Please allow me. And I'll say very quickly, I would like to tell this, that the engineering education, we are seized by the matter, and there is a lot of, how would I call it, that indeed that it will be resolved. I think, let me give that optimism, it will be resolved. The second one is that we have the Engineering Partnerships Convention, which will be happening next week. From Wednesday to Friday, Wednesday 27th to Friday 29th, and we're inviting all stakeholders, because the matters we'll be discussing include how we are going to improve engineering education in this country.
So in short, you're saying, come
one, come
together.
all. Let's reason together.
Very much. Engineers, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's always beautiful to spend time in the midst of engineers.
We appreciate it.
Otherwise, the time is highly appreciated. You have been watching this check from Broadcasting House. Kurunzi Mashinani is coming up next. Otherwise, my name is O'Brien Kimani. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Thank you.